Warning, the following video is likely to offend people who object to racial stereotyping and even profiling. How about these, for example, you buffoons?
And poker? I tell you, at premieres he used to look just like St. George with his drag on.
And who could forget this classic right here from Lenny Henry, Mr. Wokey Dokey himself?
It's really good. Listen, all you people, see, do you remember last week when I did that great joke?
Could I ever forget how
with the garden hoe and the house key, and it was hokey.
Honestly, when Lenny Henry was sending up his own people, he was a lot more funnier then. But these days, he's all about getting those reparations all sorted out, and it all turned out to be a big fat fake scheme in the end. How the mighty have fallen. But I gotta tell you, as a melanin man myself, oh my god, I'm a melanin man. I'm a melanhead, folks, because I dared to embrace that medical terminology. I'm a brown-skinned dude who loves white women. I've dated and bedded many white women, and I even dated Italian and Spanish women back in the day when I was a door host with the most at Planet Hollywood from 1996 to 2000. And now I would call Italian women and Spanish as olive-skinned people, but do we refer to them as such when profiling them? Maybe, maybe not. But going back to white women, Caucasians, to you and me, I fucking love them. I really do. I worship their legs, everything else about them, even the redheads, because trust me when I say the curtains are just the same upstairs as they are downstairs. Anyway, with that out of the way, and maybe I'm going to pursue more exotic delights because I would like to shack up and move in with a Japanese girl in Japan itself.
It is actually a very, 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 very conservative narrative based on the evidence.
And by the way, cheers, Professor Onyeka Nubia. I think that's the guy's name. You'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. But yeah, you might be wondering, why have I got this in my hand? This beautiful Nemesis brand mug from Nemesis. Well, I'll be watching the Fellowship of the Ring today in Ultra 4K glory from the Ultra 4K Steelbooks limited edition box set for Lord of the Rings. I can hardly wait. You know what's going in here, baby. It's going to be coffee all the way. And speaking of going all the way, folks, let's get on with the video because you've already seen the opening titles. British University claims Tolkien orcs represent people of color, god damn it, and the Lord of the Rings is racist. How many times have we heard this tried, tested, copy and paste narrative?
Looks like meat's back on the menu, boys!
Too many, if you ask me. There was a British MP, I forgot who it was, who claimed that indeed that Lord J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings is definitely right-wing, it's definitely racist, and we've got to do something about it. And did something about it. They certainly tried at Amazon with the Rings of Power, which has turned sour and has turned fans off, even hardcore fans, for that particular set of books from J.R.R. Tolkien, not to be confused with J.R.R. Hartley and his fly fishing books. But let's get into this, folks, because honestly, when academia tries to decolonize fantasy, and that's what it's all about, folks, decolonization, the result looks more like a parody than progress. As I've often said here, that's what happened when a British university professor claimed that the depiction of orcs in the works of J.R.R. Tolkien are somehow promoting racism, because of course. So this is coming from the Telegraph. The University of Nottingham is now offering a course titled Decolonizing Tolkien et al. I mean, you're from Nottingham, right? The Sheriff of Nottingham, Robin Hood. How about taking out folklore and maybe, Professor, how Director X from Canada decided to revisit that white folklore by painting it black. And how did that go down for a modern day setting, for a modern day audience? Not very well, did it? Rob the rich and give to ourselves? Is this the outlaws, the pack of outlaws we're supposed to be fearing? Well, we got Big Titty Mama right here, so I guess that's a consolation. The class is led by Dr. Onyeka Nubia. It don't get much more blacker than that surname, does it? He argues that the dark-skinned monsters... Whoa. So let me get it straight. He's already insulting his own race by calling them monsters. Good going, Doc. I see where you're going with this. The so-called Eastern races of Middle-earth are examples of anti-African antipathy and ethnic chauvinism. I'm wondering if this doctor has any chauvinistic tendencies of his own, if you know what I mean. In this course, the way Tolkien depicted evil creatures like orcs is framed as an outgrowth of colonialism and racism, a narrative in which the light-skinned heroes of the West, ta-da, stand as symbols of white virtue, while the darker foreign races represent villainy, bull, hiss. Or according to Nubia's, I want to call it Nubian actually, interpretation, that's not a coincidence, it's bias encoded in literature. Dr. Nubian reportedly told students that the Lord of the Rings, by the way, someone in this class should secretly film this dude talking this nonsense. I think it would be absolutely hilarious. But guess what, folks? I've got one better for you than that, so stick around and you'll see what I'm talking about. And the Lord of the Rings mirrors a worldview that casts Africans as the natural enemy of the whites. Of course. He claims, by the way, this is all claim after claim, like you're claiming a lawsuit against somebody because you hurt their fifis. That's all it is. He's actually not provided solid evidence that this actually is what he claims for it to be. He claims that Tolkien's Haradrim, Easterlings and Southrons are modelled, as Marvin Montanaro, the author of this article, modelled has 2 L's, on non-European civilizations presented as barbaric invaders, while the fair-skinned people of Gondor and Rohan embody moral purity. That would be moral purity. The course suggests that these depictions reflect a cultural hierarchy ingrained in British storytelling, not just in Tolkien's work, but in authors like C.S. Lewis, John Milton, and even William Shakespeare. Yeah, the same William Shakespeare who gave us Othello, a central black character. And yeah, people like Laurence Olivier painting himself black because it's a stage play. He's an actor, a great actor at that, and other actors before and after him who portrayed the role in the same way. I even believe David Harewood from The Flash or Supergirl even played that role, because you can't be a British actor until you've walked the boards in a Shakespearean play. It doesn't stop there. Oh no, what more? Nubian's teaching reportedly extends to the idea that English literature itself has been guilty of erasing diversity. Oh, so Thomas Hardy, Tessa the D'Urbervilles. Is it Eustacia Vi? Is that the character I'm thinking of? Is that meant to be a racist person because she's a white character? I guess so. You know, these white dudes back in their days writing all these great literary works, they weren't thinking about other races, were they? Because they were writing what they based their own experiences on. What is going on here, folks? I actually wanted to make a video game video today, and then this thing popped up and I got really incensed and really crazed out of my mind. In short, fantasy worlds, epic poems, and Renaissance plays are all suspect under this lens of decolonization. Of course, the fans and the scholars have responded, and it's all with vitriol and but you know what's going to happen, right? They respond, like me, negatively. Professor Nubian will say, "You are all racist. That is what you are." As is mentioned here, Tolkien himself wrote repeatedly that his stories were not allegories. So he's not saying the orcs are like black people. They just happen to be that way because of the habitat and what he dreamt of at the time. A point many scholars continue to emphasize. Honestly, this professor could just actually bend down and put his face between his legs and give his butt a good old sniff. He will still believe what he's talking about, wouldn't he? Because that's the kind of girl he is. Dr. Onyeka Nubia. Well, that sounds more like an 80s song I once knew by Monyaka. M-O-N-Y-A-K-A. Spells Monyaka. Decolonizing historiography is not political correctness. It is a story. God damn it. Now, I'm going to say word for the wise here. When you hear the doctor speaking, he's a well-spoken dude. He's obviously very well educated, but severely malnutritioned and very ill-informed and probably miseducated, if you know what I mean. But let's hear what the very cold doctor has to say.
To actually reveal the evidence of this presence over a 2,000-year period, to such an extent that people think that to talk about such a thing is political correctness gone mad, or that they think that it's purely a matter of some kind of...
That's really quite funny, actually, because he's already perpetuating the idea that what he's talking about in his 1 hour and 33-minute long lecture, do you think I'm going to review this for you in its entirety? You must be kidding, folks. Honestly, I've got a film to watch later on. But he's perpetuating the whole idea that it is what he claims it to be, a false narrative, and political correctness gone mad. Political correctness gone mad in the 80s, folks. Remember that when Benny Hill was censored and Kenny Everett too, to a lesser degree? But let's hear a little bit more of what Professor Dr. Onyeka Monyaba has to say.
A political agenda about destroying Englishness, which it is neither. It is actually a very, 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 very conservative narrative based on the evidence.
So already he's bringing politics into the literary works of J.R.R. Tolkien by calling it conservative. Oh no, we can't have that, because if it was left-leaning narrative dialogue from J.R.R. Tolkien, this conversation will not be had, boys and girls. Let's hear a little bit more.
So this idea of whiteness and blackness is very important because it helps us to deconstruct these notions. Whiteness and blackness are socially constructed normatives created from the societies in which they arise. These are terms of art.
Not fart.
Nobody is actually physically white. Nobody. It doesn't describe skin color. It is a political and social construct about power and privilege and position, what have you. There are many people who are really blessed with melanin, and their skin is a rich, dark brown.
Here we go.
But they are not uniformly black. Black does not describe their skin color. Both terms are
So I guess if the orcs were referred to as melanin beings of Middle Earth, that would be okay. Oh my god, nobody's born black or white or referred to that as such, but we are. We've been referred to that all our lives. Now, I can't go back to what the doctor is saying to prehistoric times, because obviously that was never thought of. But look, the color of your skin, like it, lump it or leave it, like Michael Jackson did in 1987, and what a huge mistake that was. It's just part of human life, how we get on, how we identify. I mean, can you imagine if the cops showed up at your door and they said, we'd like to talk to you, sir, about somebody fitting your melanin description, that you were seen in a white neighborhood somewhere in Surbiton harassing lovely young nubile women because they wouldn't take no for an answer. Now, that never really happened, for stating my disclaimer here on this YouTube video. YouTube and the Metropolitan Police, because Surbiton in Surrey has some rather fetching, lovely lassies. In fact, I met one yesterday in E17 in Walthamstow behind a bar, and she was absolutely delightful.
Most of all is this preposterous preoccupation with bosoms. Don't you realize that they've become the dominant theme in American culture? In literature, advertising, in all fields of entertainment, in everything.
But anyway, I want to get back to, what was I talking about now? Yeah, just walking around with different skin color. You can call it ignorance, you can call it what you want, but that's how we identify. Somebody calls me an Indian dude or a Tiger Woods lookalike, I'm not going to take offense, because this, the optics of the situation, right? You automatically think of the person's complexion or skin. You cannot get away from the fact this is how society behaves. So for Professor Onyeka Monaba to stand there in Nottingham University and wasting your tutorial fees listening to drivel about how J.R.R. Tolkien is a racist, and let's not forget Peter Jackson when he said all those years ago, we wanted to stick to the works of J.R.R. himself, not to inject our own messaging in there. No thematic responses, because that's not what he would have wanted. I mean, to be honest, the ironic point of that statement is Mr. Tolkien, or should I say Professor, wouldn't have wanted his works to be translated into an entertainment medium. He would have rather it was stuck as a literary piece. But I'm glad we got the original OG Lord of the Rings back in the day. And you know what, folks? I've got to emphasize this one more time. I'm sorry if you get sick and tired of me bringing this subject up. But when I saw the original trilogy from 2001 to 2003 with my white friend Rachel, not once did I turn to her in the audience or after we saw the films together did I say to her, do you know what, Rachel, it was great, but I didn't see myself being represented on there. Because Rachel, like me, was not ignorant about that, because you knew why you were watching the film, big spectacle, she read the books, she knew what to expect. A worldwide audience of color who's read the books of Tolkien again and again would walk away and think, why haven't we seen this in the film? Because that's the representation. Again, Tolkien wrote about, he wanted to create a mythology for England because England didn't have one. And I think to the best part of whatever you decide to call it, Tolkien did do that. But unfortunately now it's getting tarnished, it's getting blemished, it's getting discredited, and it's all failing, and I'm glad it is. And I wish the British government, this wanky government we have right now, would keep their nose out of affairs of the literary heart and stop agreeing with people like Professor Monyaka right here, who says that the orcs on Middle Earth are really black people in disguise, and we must do something to rewrite history. Oh no! Oh no! Hilarious. Look what I did here. So I asked ChatGPT if J.R.R. Tolkien wrote Lord of the Rings for today for a modern society, what would it entail? And this is what Chat came back with. That's a great question and a fascinating what if. So what I find very funny here on the world building and themes, that's okay. We can accept that. But wait until we get to representation and diversity. A modern Tolkien would likely broaden representation. The original work has a very Eurocentric and male-heavy cast. A contemporary version might include more women in leadership. Well, how's that worked out so far?
Yo, she-bitch. Let's go.
Think Eowyn, not as an exception, but a norm. A wider cultural spectrum for Middle-earth's peoples, inspired by global mythologies rather than just Norse and Anglo-Saxon roots. But on that one, folks, if I were you and if you were me, I will definitely see you seeing me for the return of Cheers, the next video.
You have my sword.
And you have my bow.
And my axe.